Welcome to Talking Grit, a Detroit Lions podcast. Talking Grit is brought to you by the Monroe County Reporters, Monroe's top news source for police, fire, and community events.
Depot Street, truck boy intercept.
Follow them on Facebook, and for $2.99 a month, you can become a subscriber and get the news you crave even faster.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Talking Grit. I'm Jason Harwood, and with me is Jacob Litton. We're doing another edition of what we call biting recaps. It's just fitting because this game totally bit. It bites the loss. It's a hard one to take. There are plenty of things to talk about, obviously. Really both good and bad. Of course, we're going to be, we want to focus on the bad hands that, our team lost at home. But there were some good things to take away from this too, and we'll try to focus on that too. But first, before I talk anymore, we're going to have Jacob tell us his overall thoughts on the game, and we'll go from there.
I think a good word for it is just disappointing. Every loss is disappointing. Obviously, we want to win every time that we're out there. And this year, we feel like we have the team to win every time that we're out there and stay competitive. Honestly, the whole time during the game, it still felt like we were going to snap out of it and we were going to get it done. There was just so many positive drives and everything. We just weren't able to finish. And even right there at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, it really just felt like, okay, now is the time. Now we're going to make up for everything that's happened in the earlier part. We're going to get it done. And we still didn't. And just left the game with a really bad taste in our mouths, just really disappointed. I will say some of the things that I've seen online, let's not hit the panic button just yet. We're not going overboard with it. I saw a couple things on Twitter where they were calling for Goff to be replaced by Hendon Hooker. That's not reasonable. That's not what we're going for right now. It's week 2. These things happen. You have bad games sometimes. And really, we're going to go into it here in a minute, but overall, it was not a bad game. We just didn't get enough. We just didn't get it done. We didn't do enough to win.
Yeah, for me, it was the offense, just didn't look totally in sync at all in that game. There were some times where we got some really good third downs. We were moving the ball, but we just couldn't take care of it in the red zone. But the defense certainly played well enough to win this game. The defense was a bright spot in this game, and that's something that I'm going to hang my hat on going forward. That team just hung 37 points on the Commanders last week. I know it's the Commanders, but still 37 points in this league. That's pretty impressive, and we were able to keep them down. So if there was anything I was more worried about coming into the season, it's the defense over the offense. And so I think the offense has got plenty of time to turn around. And like you said, Jacob, I felt comfortable in the fourth quarter. I thought, okay, we're going to get, especially the field position that we got. I thought we're going to come down and score this. Just didn't happen. Tampa Bay played good defense and made us throw it over the middle of the field, which is where we didn't want to throw it. And J-Mo had that one by the sidelines that he almost caught that, he just couldn't get 2 feet in bounds because that could have been a huge play. Kind of frustrating, but we'll go into some reasons why I think they're going to snap out of it when we get down to the offense. And but let's hang our head on the defense and just take that as a positive. They played really well. We're going to be able to talk about Hutch in our defensive section, which will be exciting because and that's, above the loss, I'm also disappointed on that we can't really focus on that because, the Lions win that game. We're thinking about that Hutch thing in a totally different, he just dominated that game. I really feel like the offense is going to break out. I think that we're getting close. It's just a matter of just getting some consistency in there. Let's talk about some key plays and missed opportunities. Sorry, for you, Jacob. I have 5 things that I've listed that are just key plays or things that I've noticed in the game. I'm sure that some of we have similar things. So I'm going to let you start off and then we'll just kind of react to that and go back and forth.
So really, I guess we'll start at the beginning of the game because that's kind of when they kind of set the tone and had the key plays early on. That deep pass where they got the pass interference call on Terry and Arnold, we were playing good defense up until that point. They kind of just decided, I believe that was 3rd and long, right? So they're like, we're just going to take a shot here. It's a toss-up whether it was pass interference or not. It probably could have been called either way. You look at it in slow motion, you're like, there's arguments for both sides to say I don't think it was or it was. Live, they called it. That's all that matters. They get the ball down there. Instant red zone opportunity. And then the defense really holds them up. We stopped them. That was Hutch's first sack, happened right after that. And then, hold them to a field goal. And then the killer play was the one right after that. We get the ball back. The very first play, Goff throws the interception. That one was definitely a missed call. I don't know if you can really debate that. It was a missed pass interference call on Jameson Williams. Like we said before, we're not here to blame the refs. That's not what we're doing. It was a missed call. You got to work past that. And I think that those were key plays because that really kind of set the tone for how the game was going to go. We basically spotted them 6 points there, right there at the beginning. Another one, which I don't have in front of me exactly where it was at, but, when they got that roughing the passer call on Jared Goff, I really think that kind of shook him a little bit. They were getting pressure anyway for, a little bit. He was definitely it seemed like he was feeling more pressure that wasn't there. And I feel like that started after that roughing the passer call. Did you notice that at all?
From inside, I rewatched the game today, and I don't know if I noticed. I mean, he was running more, but I think that was some of that was kind of more designed. I thought, which was interesting. But, I don't
him Goff like outside of the pocket.
Well, like when they fake handoff, and then I think they knew he was going to have the option to run. We got that first down. I can't remember exactly when that was, but it seems like Goff was a little more itchy in the pocket than I normally see him, and there wasn't like an abundance of pressure. I didn't feel like they were just crowding him. He just didn't look comfortable. He didn't look comfortable the whole game.
Right.
So whether it was from that pass, that roughing the quarterback, I'm not really sure, but I can tell you that he was like in the game. So I'm at the stadium, like in one of the timeouts, he's throwing on the sidelines, like loosening up, which made me think that something was off because generally you don't see. It was just like during the regular TV timeout too, so it wasn't even like
right. Usually during long breaks, but not like just during regular timeout.
I don't think he's like hurt, but something wasn't right, so he needed to loosen up, whether it was from a hit or something. So I think there is something to that, but there's no excuse for some of the throws that that were made and stuff like that. So it just seems like he was skipping some throws in there. That pass interference that you mentioned on the Goss first interception, I don't know how you missed that. Compared to what was called on Terry and Arnold, it's like I don't get it. Like you said, the Terry and Arnold thing. I think if he doesn't hit him in the face mask, like with his hands, I think he's totally fine. He's playing the ball, which is what you're supposed to do. His hands are out there basically feeling for where the receiver's at, but he just happened to
exactly.
They were kind of hand fighting, but I mean the receivers had his hand up there too and was moving things around. Was always going to get called on the defense in that situation. You could make the argument J-Mo ran into the defender, but the defender turns his body like into J-Mo. So it's clear pass interference. Those 3 points at the end of the game obviously came in very important. Say we don't spot them there because they weren't really driving it much. We clearly just put them in the red zone there, or close to the red zone. Another thing that is going to get widely talked about is a field goal, that debacle at the end of the half. Campbell took full responsibility for that. I don't even really know what's happening. I watched the TV version, and I don't think that you guys could even see, but no. Almost the whole, probably there was 6 or 7 guys from the special teams that were coming on, and so they were all on the field, and they were probably a good 5 yards from the sideline, and then they saw the offense downing it. So I could see what was going to happen. The only thing I was hoping is that somehow Tampa Bay was offside because we rushed in there, and then we get offside penalties.
Yeah.
But I knew that I was like, oh, that's a 10-second runoff. We're going to get hosed on this. Total big blunder. I don't understand how that really happens.
I mean, you can't let that happen. It's inexcusable on all parts. Dan Campbell really took the blame for that. You'd think that would have been a conversation about if they if we go down inbounds, if the clock is running, I mean, you have to know that you have enough time to clock it. If you don't have enough time to clock it, you don't have enough time to get the field goal unit out
Well,
there.
and that's the thing. Like Dan Campbell said in the press conference today that it takes 18 seconds for them to rush the field goal kicking team on there. 14 seconds is like the bare minimum. It was like 9. Say that was 4th down, you'd be better off just going for it because you're probably not going to get the team off. So whether they lost track of down, I'm not sure what happened there, but it was incredibly costly. We could argue the game may played out different. Tampa maybe played their game different, knowing that we only needed a field goal to win. But just that those 3 points would come in very handy.
It's funny, the training camp practice that we went to, we watched them run that drill. We saw them run the field goal team out and try to get that field goal off. And, we saw how angry Dan Campbell was when they messed that up. So I can only imagine what that locker room was like when they had to get back in there.
Dan Campbell was incredibly emotional in the, you could see that he almost broke out. He in tears. He felt like he cost them that win. It was a team loss, in my opinion. There was lots of things that could have been done better. Another play that I thought that I'm not really hearing a lot about, but I really think it cost the Lions. After they got the interception, Hutch had his first sack. We knocked him out of field goal range. Then they get a 19-yard screen pass to Godwin, which got them into field goal range. So we had stopped them it was 3rd and 22. They get the 19-yard screen play, and then they kick. That allowed Tampa Bay to kick a field goal, which those 3 points are just as detrimental as not getting the 3 points before the halftime. So I was that like getting 19 yards on the 3rd and 22. Yes, at least we didn't let them get the first down and they can go down and maybe score more. But it just that's a killer. Those 3 points end up being a killer at the end of the game. So I was disappointed in that. That was one of the few. That and then the place where Godwin was scored a touchdown when there was some sort of defensive breakdown because he walked into the end zone.
I think that was kind of just a good play call also. I mean, there was some confusion on our part, but that's kind of how the play design was supposed to go. And they had them going towards Mike Evans kind of in the middle, breaking off, and it was just that perfect. I mean, you can tell it's exactly what that play was designed to do. That's what they wanted, and it just was right there. It was an easy touchdown for them.
All the coverage shaded over to Evans, and Godwin was wide open and just kind of basically just nonchalantly walked into that.
Well, he kind of came out as if he was blocking for a screen. Yeah. So then you've got the corner over there kind of breaks down on him. You've got Mike Evans running kind of towards the center. So the safety over top is cutting that way. And then, I mean, it was perfect. He had just enough room, that throw, and then he walked into the end zone.
Yeah, they had run a few of those type plays versus the Commanders the week before where it's an option to go to the screen or something down the field. And so, not sure if Tampa tones when we were interviewing them, but at some point I was either I watched it and saw it, a lot of options to screen, and then they would have, that pulls the defense in, and then, Mike Evans is going to command a lot of attention. The way Godwin's playing the last couple weeks, he's going to start commanding more attention too. He lit us up yesterday, but that was something I was really worried about. And we talked about, in our preview about Godwin, and he's a 3rd down machine. And that proved, in a couple plays, he came through for Tampa Bay. We couldn't complain about the refs for the pass interference or just mentioning it. It kind of went the other way, I think, in the second quarter. Amon-Ra caught a ball, turned upfield, and immediately they popped it out. That could have been called a fumble. It was very close watching on replay.
Right.
And if that would have been a fumble, they would have picked it up and ran it the other way for a touchdown. So, you can sit here and complain about the refs all we want. That kind of went our way. It was close.
We were lucky that they didn't. Sometimes that happened with the Packers game last year where they kind of just let it play out. And I think if they did let that play out and let them take that fumble to the end zone, it probably would have stood because it was dangerously close. I mean, he catches it right as he's tucking it, they hit him.
Yeah, he takes one turn upfield, so it depends on what they consider a football move. It's like one of those subjective matters. But like you said, it probably whatever it gets called on the field is probably where it stays. As
Right.
far as, is there enough evidence to overturn it? So I think that was fortunate in the Lions' favor there, as far as the refs. But I also felt like, just overall, it felt like Tampa was very physical with us in the secondary. And the way that first play went with Terran Arnold, like he wasn't really even physical. He's just, hand fighting, and they called that. So you would think there just wasn't consistency there, and you would like to see some consistency. I don't care either way what they're going to call it, but I, just like most fans, want to be called the same way. Like it's like a pitcher's umpire strike zone. When you want to
Right,
see
right.
like, okay, that pitch is outside. They're calling it a strike. Okay, they need to call it a strike for both teams. That's kind of way I felt on that. That it was a little inconsistent. The last thing that I want to talk about is interesting or key place was the fake punt, Devaki. That was
Absolutely.
crazy. I mean, it ended up turning into nothing. We went again for fourth down on that same drive, stalled out and ended up having a punt anyway. So it was kind of just disappointing. But yeah, Jack Fox has got a gun right there, doesn't he?
Right. Hey, you know what? That was still huge, though, because it kept the drive going a little bit longer. We didn't want to have to give the ball back right away. We needed to keep the offense out there, even though it didn't turn out. When you're watching on TV, though, I can't tell. They do that. I don't like the angle anyway, but a lot of times they'll do the camera angle when they're punting where the camera's behind the punter. So then they see the snap, and then I can see him throw the ball, and I have no idea whether we got the first down or how close it was or anything like that.
Yeah.
Until after the announcers are saying they don't even have the first down line on the field because it's a punt. What was it like in person, though?
Your eyes are kind of playing with you, though, because at home, the camera's telling you where to focus. Whereas on the field, you're looking to see where the ball goes. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh, and then the crowd starts to swell, and you're like, oh, my God. But I immediately saw, like, it was immediate that as soon as he got the ball, he threw it. And I mean, they must have been looking for a certain kind of formation. What's interesting on Twitter, if you follow any of the beat writers, Dave Burkett last week
I was going to mention
circled
that.
that. Circled that. He goes, Vaki's going to be getting a fake punt at some point this year. And who would have thought it'd been like 1 week later? Jeremy Reisman said he goes, good thing that Tampa Bay doesn't read Dave Burkett's tweets, because he would have been. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Cat's out of the bag.
Dan Campbell hadn't. I think we only had a couple last year, but I was not expecting it to come out at that point, which is probably why it worked so well, because I'm sure Tampa Bay wasn't either.
Right.
But
nope, I don't think anybody saw it coming.
No, and that's when it works the best. I think Vaki said something like he thought it was going to get called off at the last second, so they must know that they're going to run it, going out there, and then then they have the off call depending on what kind of how
they've got the kill the play. Let's just kick it away. We don't like the defense.
How they're set up.
I wonder who's in charge of that, though. The quarterback's not out there. Is that on the punter to kill that and punt it anyway?
I don't know. I'm sure, is Jalen Reeves-Maybin out there? Because he's something.
Yeah, he's back. I guess he would be the captain. He would.
I'm thinking that it's probably him, because usually he's one of the protectors.
I know there's specific things they're looking for, but he may not have eyes on to see what they're doing over there exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure when they have the kill, when they have that play on that, whoever it is, idea to kill, they know exactly what they're looking for, where they're lined up. That was pretty crazy. So, everyone was calling for Hooker to, take over for Goff. What about Fox? Fox can take over for Goff. He's 1 for 1, man.
Hey, when there's no coverage and your man's wide open, why not?
Exactly. So I thought first we would start with the defense. We'll start with the positive here. Lions held the Bucs at 231 yards on 47 plays, kept Baker Mayfield down, 12 for 19 for buck 85. So under 200 yards. You think if you're going to hold a quarterback under 200 yards and you're going to hold this team to like 70 yards rushing, you got to win that game, right?
If you look at any stats from this game, any of these lines, it looks like we should have came out on top. Time of possession, I mean, basically up and down. Anything you can look at, outside of the turnovers. But I mean, anything you can look at, we were better than stat wise. So
yeah,
another reason why it was disappointing.
Yeah, super disappointing. So Godwin did have a great game, 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Looked like, that you thought that was a great play call, and it was. It obviously confused our team. We kept Mike Evans under wraps, 3 catches for 42 yards, didn't get in the end zone. If you told me before the game that you're going to hold Mike Evans to 42 yards, I'm really, really, really happy.
Well, when Hutchinson's in your face every single time you get the ball, it makes things a little easier there.
It does. Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, I don't know if you have the stats in front of you, but he completed 4 passes in the second half. All of those were the first half, and a lot of the Godwin's catches were in the first couple drives. I think at the end, because 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown, that was all early on. He did not catch a pass in the second half.
No. Lions defense played, especially in that second half, we just, other than that drive that Baker ran in, and did you see the hit that Anzalone took? Did you see the replay on that where he got a concussion?
I did not see the hit that he took.
Watch it. It is Barnes smokes him. Barnes is trying to hit Mayfield. Mayfield kind of ducks his shoulder.
You know what? I saw that live, but I didn't realize that was when that happened.
Yeah, so that's when Anzalone gets concussed, and it's helmet to helmet, and it's amazing that Barnes wasn't hurt worse because, he just demolishes Anzalone, which, never want to see a guy get concussed, but especially you don't want to concuss your own teammate.
So that's funny that you mentioned that. The very first play of the game for the Buccaneers, did you see Wirfs as the one that smoked Godwin on that short pass?
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Godwin got the ball, and I forget who was trying to tackle him. Wirfs was trying to run out there and block, and he ends up hitting Godwin. Godwin hits the ground and kind of looks up at him like, what did you do to me?
Well, I would too if Wirfs ran into me.
Yeah, right. That had to hurt.
It's a big boy. So
I thought you were going to talk about Rodrigo, because Baker juked him and he kind of fell down awkwardly. That was a bad look.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he thought that juke was coming from Baker. I think he thought more likely he was going to put his shoulder down or slide.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that. If you haven't seen that, or listeners, if you haven't seen that, it's not fun to see our player get juked out, but it was Rodrigo just hit the ground sliding, and on that turf you just see those rubber pellets just fly everywhere because
it makes it worse. Put him on skates.
Yeah, coming into this game, that was my worry about Baker getting out of the pocket. I thought for the most part we had kept him contained. The problem was that when he wasn't in the first half, he was able to get out of the pocket and make some plays too, which hurt. But again, defense played well enough. Let's get into Hutch. Okay, we've kind of danced around it so much. 4.5 sacks, completely dominant in that game. Led, I think he's leading the league in pressures. He is becoming a force out there. He's always been this high motor guy, but he just seems to have another level this year. The sack record for the Lions is 15 sacks by Robert Porcher. It's clearly in sight for Hutchinson this year, the way he started out.
Absolute monster. We already knew what he was capable of, and we knew that he's getting better each day, each game. Especially last week, we had kind of a backup offensive line that we were going against, but he wasn't able to get as many sacks, I guess. He was still able to get the pressures, but they were getting rid of the ball too quick. So we really wanted to see how it was going to go this week, and they weren't getting the ball out as quick as the Rams did, and they really paid for that. They had a backup offensive tackle on him, and he just had his way with that guy. I think Hutch only went against Wirfs 1 or 2 snaps, and even then, the motor is there, the relentless is there. That backup tackle didn't stand a chance. They start chipping him, trying to do what they can to slow him down, and then we used our new addition, DJ Reader. Said, hey, you know what? We're going to run some stunts. You're going to have to cover DJ, and then Hutch coming right up at the middle. Just beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look forward to that. Just keep happening. That stunt, if you're going to start chipping and sending people over there, that's what the Lions are going to do. They're going to run stunts, and then the defense is going to get confused. And last week, we talked about Stafford getting out the ball fast and everything, but at the end of the game, Hutch got the sack at the end of the game. Hutch kept us in this game in the first half. He gets a sack when they were in the red zone, like on that very first drive, basically knocks him, kicks him to a field goal. And then the second drive after we get an interception, he gets a sack on second down, which knocked him out of field goal range until we talked about that play that they ran a screen play and Godwin got that. We were about to get out of that with 0 points, even though throwing an interception on our side of the field, which is amazing. And then he got a third sack in the first quarter. I looked over at Preston. I was like, he's on pace for 12 sacks today. I don't know if he's going to get there, but at one point he was listed with 5 until they split the sack with Levi.
Yeah, right.
Which is, I think, fair just from based on
Absolutely.
watching that Levi caused that. He's got 5.5 sacks. We're 2 games in. The thing is and the way he ended last year, I mean, he was on a tear at the end of last year, so I don't know. I guess I could look back, but he's probably got like 10 sacks in the last like 4 games or whatever. So he is turning into a demon on that side that's becoming unblockable. And when you, like you said, you brought in DJ Reader, that's going to take out double teams. We just need, and Levi's getting pressure too. If Davenport comes back and can collapse that pocket, it's going to be tough. And we're going to need that next week when we play Arizona. We're going to need to collapse the pocket and contain, because we got a quarterback that can run. So, we'll get into that in our preview later on, but that's just something to look forward to, is just another running quarterback. Those sacks were just they were just drive stoppers. They totally got the offense the ball back, and it's why we ran 80 some plays on offense. It's just couldn't get it done. The defense did play their part. I will talk about Derek Barnes too. Derek Barnes, this is his last year. He's going to possibly be a free agent at the end of the year. The way they're playing, the way he's playing, I really feel like he's becoming up there with Aleem as a must sign. We really need. There's not anybody else on our team that can do what Derek Barnes does. Play that Sam position, play in coverage, rush the quarterback, do the things that we need to do him on the outside. He had that huge play in the fourth quarter where they tried to run that quick slant,
right?
And he, got his hands up, knocked the ball down, which was huge because that kept us a timeout.
Yes,
which we should have been able to.
That really
use.
saved that game.
It did, and it would have. It's just unfortunate. Bucks were 2 for 10 on third downs. Another thing, you said all those stats lean into the Lions should win this game. 20% on third downs. We should win this game. Bucks had 10 possessions. They only averaged 19.3 yards per possession.
Right.
That's 1 first down, and then they're punting. Just really deflating that our defense did that and our offense couldn't come through, just because our offense is supposed to be better than our defense. But that being said, I really think that this is not long lasting with the offense. We're going to be able to, bounce back from this. I think we're really close on the offense. It's hard when you're at home in front of your fans and, just can't get in the red zone that many times and you can't punch it in.
I mean, you hit 2 or 3 more of those and it's a pretty easy win for us. I want to shout out Brian Branch again. I know I talked about him week 1,
Yep.
And you had said the Pro Football Focus numbers, ratings, or whatever, didn't exactly back that up because of a couple missed tackles. But, I mentioned the pass breakups and his willingness to just put it all out on the line and dive and do whatever he can to prevent the ball from getting there. And he did it again this week. And, he actually came away with a big interception too on a weird play where the Buccaneers seemed like both receivers are running the same route. So then we've got 4 defenders over there. I don't know what that was about, but still, we got to capitalize when things like that happen. And he did. He made a couple nice tackles as well. I think that Brian Branch has been doing really well.
That there was some sort of busted play there. I can't imagine you have those 2 guys in the same area, especially Godwin and Evans.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to create a crowd when you have those 2 guys together. So that was a little weird. But last week, similar, he against the Rams, he had an interception like that, and he just dropped it. This time, no, he corralled it in, which could have turned out huge. So let's move on to the offense now. He ran, like I said, 83 plays for 478 yards. That was compared to 231 yards. So we doubled the Bucs' yardage. Dan Campbell said in the press conference today, we were really good in between the 20s, not so much in the red zone. And ultimately, that's what it came down to, right? 1 TD and we ran 19 plays in the red zone to Tampa Bay only ran 4 in the red zone. and what I don't understand is David Montgomery only played 30 snaps, 35% of snaps, especially when they flashed on the screen that Vita Vea was out with a knee injury.
Right.
I looked at Preston. I was like, get Demo in there. We're going to be able to run it now. But frankly, it's funny I said frankly, but I don't think Frank Ragnow played I saw him on the ground a lot, and usually he'll just dominate. I thought when Vea was out there that we were just going to get major push and be able to just go, and it just never happened. It kept feeling like we were going to the outside too fast, which Tampa Bay is really fast to the ball, and it was, we would try those screens to Jameer, and we'd end up like losing 4 yards, and you're setting your offense back. And it's hard. It was just hard to recover for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that we made it too easy on them. They had, their backups in the secondary. They had a really young secondary. We talked about that in the preview, some undrafted free agents, not a lot of experience back there. So, I mean, we had to know ahead of time that they're going to be playing zone majority, and they did a good job. They blitzed on 54% of plays, using a lot of, defensive backs, and they had a lot of nice blitzes from the side that actually stopped our running game. And kind of like what you said, we kept forcing it to the outside when I think we should have been pounding it up the middle, especially when Vita went out. It just seems like that's the easy thing to do. You put David Montgomery back there. You've got the backup defensive lineman now. They were already without Kancey. You should be able, especially with our offensive line, you should be able to get some push and break out a couple of runs. And, it didn't happen, but it was for lack of trying, really. We did not exploit that enough. Goff threw the ball 55 times. He doesn't do that. We don't win football games like that. Do you know when the last time he threw over 50 passes was?
No, that's good.
It was last year in the Ravens game. And we all know why he threw 50 times that time is because we were losing. We lost 38-6. So one time last year, 0 times in 2022, and then he did it 1 time in 2021 when we lost. We are not a team that throws the ball 50 times a game to win, basically. And especially in a game where it's basically, it's one possession the whole time. We're in it the entire length of the game. We are a running offense. We have 2 very capable running backs. For us not to be mixing that in more and pounding that more was just very disappointing and really puzzling, I guess. Like, why was that not part of the game plan? What changed where we decided that, especially after Goff, kind of had the rough couple first quarters? You'd think with still close, let's try to mix in some more runs. We're going to try to go up the middle a little more in between the tackles, and it just didn't happen.
Well, I mean, that's how this team is built. I mean, we're supposed to run early, get into manageable third downs, and, that's where Goff can really just tear you up because he's going to hit just somewhere. But, like you mentioned, he was 55 passes. He was 55 for 307. He ran the ball 2 times for 5 yards, like we talked about. I don't know what's going on with Goff this year. He had a 7-yard run in the first game, and he's run for 5. So I think 12's more than I've seen him rush for his whole entire tenure with the Lions. The game started out with a bang, that 50-yard pass, and that was a beautiful pass. I mean, he hit Jamo in stride. Jamo made a nice catch.
Right.
I was kind of surprised he didn't get a touchdown on that. That was the best pass that Goff threw all day, unfortunately. And especially when you start out the game like that, you're like, yes, because you knew that their secondary's down. You think this is how this whole game's going to go. We're just going to be able to put the ball wherever we want. And you would think that maybe it would open up the middle of the field a little, because that's where Goff has tore up the Bucs so much, is just over the middle of the field. And it just didn't seem like it was coming together for whatever reason.
No.
Like you said, they were playing zone a lot, and it just, I don't know. It felt like we weren't making the right play calls to get the things done. And then, Goff, he's had probably 3 or 4 more passes that game that could have been intercepted.
Yes.
And they were either, way undershot, and it was so bad that the defense couldn't intercept it, or, we just got lucky. It just didn't seem like Goff was on his game in the Rams game either. We're just not in sync. The offense just doesn't look like it's running at its peak like we saw last year. The good thing is it's September, right? I mean, we have time to grow.
It's a long season.
September football looks ugly for a lot of teams.
And it did this week for a lot of the high-profile teams, came out on the wrong end of these games.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So, Baltimore's 0-2, right? San Francisco loses to Minnesota. They're 1-1. They're teams that are really good teams that have lost to. So the sky's not falling for our Detroit Lions. The thing that we worried about all of last year, the defense has looked pretty good in the first 2 games this year. Definitely in this game looked lights out. I mean, Hutch looks unstoppable, and we're not going to be going against backup offensive linemen all the time, but next week we will be going against backup offensive linemen, and it'll be Hutch's time to feast. So there are positives. Defense is good. We know the offense is going to come. It's going to come in. One player that I think is going to make a difference is Tim Patrick. He played on 39% of snaps yesterday, which was really high, I thought, for someone they're bringing out the practice squad. Only been with the team for a couple weeks. But that guy is huge. He has got a huge catch radius. So, which is going to come in real handy when we get in the red zone. We were very deficient in the red zone. That was the game right there. You could say anything about what else had to play. We scored one more touchdown. We're at least tied that up instead of a field goal, or we get in the end zone just totally, and then some more points. We should have won that game by scoring more in the red zone. We're one of the top 5 teams in the red zone the last couple of years. We're in the bottom right now.
Right.
And that can't be sustained. We had talked a lot about over the summer about Josh Reynolds and missing him. He was a huge red zone piece. I saw, plays where I was like, that's a play where we're going to go to, that's a Josh Reynolds play where he goes, fakes to the left like he's going outside, and then he'll cut right up to the middle, right to the field goal post, and then catches a touchdown pass. That was a Josh Reynolds special.
Right.
That Jared Goff felt very comfortable throwing to him there. Hopefully Tim Patrick, because he is tall, he can box people out. He'll be able to catch that pass. Hopefully that they can get that rapport going.
For sure. I just want to touch on real quick, because you had mentioned that deep pass that Goff had to JMO, and I'm sure it was electric inside Ford Field. It was awesome. We looked like, here we go, we're driving. The very next play is that roughing the passer penalty. So Goff has that one good ball, and then the next one is the roughing the passer.
Yeah.
He didn't throw another completion that drive, and then we end up having to take that field goal. As far as the red zone goes, because I know this is speaking on the Tim Patrick thing, the red zone play calls were not very good. The execution was not good, obviously. You don't go 1-7 just for bad play calls, too. But, the execution was terrible, but the play calls were very basic. They were not very good at all. And it's disappointing. I wonder if, because we don't have that classic, Josh Reynolds kind of thing, if that's why we're, I guess dumbing it down, it looks like. The one red zone play where it was like Goff dropped back, he took like 2-step drop, and then he threw an out to Jamison Williams, who had 2 defenders on him. There was no chance he was catching that ball. The protection was there. Amon-Ra hadn't even made his cut yet. He was going to cut to the corner. David Montgomery was about to run a route out of the backfield, and he didn't even reach the line of scrimmage before Goff just killed it, basically, over to JMO. Stuff like that, that's poor execution. When you talk about the play calls, though, the play calls were worse. They have a very good red zone defense. And, regardless of who's back there, that was evident for sure. We get in the red zone. We already know what they're doing. We know that they're playing a soft zone. We're snapping the ball from, first and goal situation, and most of their safeties and corners are all lined up, like a yard or so in front of the end zone boundary. They don't want to let anything behind them. That's a time when we should be trying to run up the middle and try to soften that up and really use Sam Laporta. I don't understand why he's in there in pass protection or he's sitting back. That just makes no sense to me. he's a red zone threat, and he proved that last year. So for him to not even be running routes out there, we had that one drive where we're in the red zone. They throw it wasn't quite a screen, but it's behind the line of scrimmage. They throw it to Gibbs. We lose 4 yards. Next play, we run an out route to Jamison Williams, another quick out route. We got 5 yards back. 3rd and 9, Goff drops back, and it's another one where he just doesn't let the play develop, and he just checks it down to Gibbs, and we get 1 yard out of it.
There was a lot of that. I think some of the stuff, they were they had a lot of long 1st and goal situations where they're not but that, you're right. Usually they're going to run it, and that the one drive we incomplete pass 1st down. David Montgomery runs it, gets 7 yards. We get up to the 3-yard line, and that's when they threw that out to JMO that was double covered and basically threw. That was just a wasted play. We could second guess. In hindsight, I know it's always 20/20, but it just feels like we didn't utilize our weapon of David Montgomery well enough in this game, and especially when you see the way Goff was playing it. And there was another opportunity. I guess we kind of talked about that Dan Campbell could have kicked a 15-yard field goal, opted a punt, and then we got the ball right back. I think that was the right decision to make. But some people argue that we got Jake Bates for a long, be able to kick that. Let's do it. But the way the defense is playing, I agree with him. Give our offense another chance. They're going to come through. They can't just keep failing in the red zone as far as they did. Because that's the thing. In those 4th quarter drives we had, not only did our offense get the ball back, we were getting it in prime field position, right at midfield. We score on those all the time.
Right.
It's just heartbreaking.
And I mean, really, the only time that they scored, the only offense they had was when Baker Mayfield had a really nice pass to that rookie McMillan, and that was one where he kind of, even that, I think we were playing in a zone. He kind of just found a soft spot, and he's right there. That was a good pass, classic, whatever. But then Baker had those scrambles. He scrambles for 10, 11 yards, and they get the 1st down. And then he kind of just decides, I think that was a play call. That was the design, quarterback draw for Baker Mayfield, because that was the only thing that was working at that point. And then sure enough, he runs in and gets the touchdown. I mean, if your quarterback is Baker Mayfield and he leads your team in rushing, you would think that you lost that game and that it didn't go very well for you.
It's just one of those things. And usually you would see if there was a big yardage difference, there would be a larger turnover difference. The Lions had 3 or 4 and, a fumble or something to go along in there. But just the 2 interceptions, and that second interception was just, again, he looked uncomfortable and he just kind of threw the ball in the middle of the field. I immediately looked from the stadium and I was like, well, that seemed there was no one around. I was telling Preston, I was like, if he was in the pocket, that was been intentional grounding. Because there was no receiver even close. Tim Patrick's running out. I'm assuming that he was supposed to be cutting in or something like that. Throwing over the middle of the field like that, while you're getting tackled, is probably not. It came out as a wobbler too.
Yeah,
so
it was a very
probably
bad
wasn't
ball.
Going to. I don't know if it didn't look like it was supposed to be intended right there either. But obviously something happened there. We don't know. But I'm assuming Tim Patrick just kind of, he probably had some sort of choice route, and maybe on a zone he's supposed to cut in the middle, whereas man-to-man go to the outside, and he just, made the wrong choice. But still, that was another missed opportunity. We could have kicked a field goal in that situation. So just so many times we just shot ourselves in the foot. For you and I, this is our first time talking after a loss, and having to analyze it. It was very tough for me. It's definitely not as fun to rewatch, but honestly, some of it helped me get over some of my own crap that I have with, being too involved with sports and looking, just taking it too personally. So I just kind of stepped outside myself and just looked at it as okay, I'm going to watch this football game and see what actually happened.
Take your feelings off the table.
And just and it's kind of freeing to be able to actually do that. It still hurts, and it hurt. My boys were crushed. They actually took it a little bit better. I think because the Tigers won, that it helped a little bit. So I think it just took a little bit of that off, but it was this is funny because so I have my perspective inside the stadium. We had known the Tigers had won one before because we were keeping track on the phone. They didn't put it up on the scoreboard, but right after Goff threw that interception, like that one we just talked about, they like during the TV timeout, they flashed that on the screen. It was almost as if I'm going to get everybody cheering, get everybody in a good mood because, and I told Press, I was like, I wonder if they saved that for like, in case a bad moment happened or something like that, they're going to throw it up on the screen.
Well, they executed.
Yeah, they did. They'll flash stuff and they kept flashing the Cowboys score too, because they know we hate the Cowboys. So they kept flashing that as, the Saints are just
murdering
the
them.
Cowboys. Yeah. Saints are turning offensive juggernaut.
Right. Maybe we were wrong about the Saints.
Yeah, I don't know. Certainly wrong about the Falcons so far.
Yeah.
I am for sure. But it's a loss. We're gonna move on. We will get better. We have a tough game next week, Arizona. That hurt the loss even more. I remember you sending me the text that we got to face this team, and they were up 21-0 on the Rams.
Yeah, they had their way with that Rams defense.
They did. Sometimes those games just get out of hand, and you got Kyler Murray. It seemed like Marvin Harrison's going to be a beast. He finally had his game. Let's just take him back a notch next week. We'll try to figure that out.
Snap him back to reality.
Yeah, well, I also think Kyler, I've seen him play it enough, and maybe we'll ask Bo Barrick, who we're going to interview on Wednesday, Phoenix podcaster, and reporter. I kind of want to know what his feeling on Kyler Murray is, because it seems like, every time that I've seen him play or he's played the Lions, he'll just make a boneheaded throw at some point. You just put a little pressure on him and he just kind of makes an ill-advised throw. So I'm wondering if he's seen that yet. I haven't watched all of their games yet, so I haven't seen too much, but played really well yesterday. And James Conner, their running back, is really good too.
That's going to be an interesting matchup. We'll talk about that.
We're going to have our hands full. We'll save that for Wednesday. We'll have, we'll talk Wednesday with Bo, and we'll have that podcast out on Thursday. So looking forward to that. Before we head out of here, let's go over our grit guarantees and review that. The reason I'm bringing it up, because I'm right this time, and Jacob's wrong. So Amon-Ra did get his 100 yards. It looked like they were forcing the ball, or not really forcing it, but they were feeding him very consistently. And I think the biggest difference is that he didn't get a lot of yards after catch. He just, seems like they were on him.
Right. That was kind of what the defense was giving them. He played right into where Amon-Ra's strengths, because they're dropping back in the zone. They're not really playing close onto somebody. And Amon-Ra is definitely able to find the holes in the zone and find out how to get open, on those choice routes and those curl routes and different things like that. He's the best at that.
So I got it with Amon-Ra with 100 yards, and then Jacob just picked the wrong defensive back. Should have picked Brian Branch with CD to get an interception. We'll see what we come up with next week. But anything else that you want to leave off with, Jacob? Or
I just, want to reiterate again. It's a loss. It's a tough loss, but this is really early on in the season. And, it's going to be, there's a long season. There's plenty of time. We still believe in the Lions. I know a lot of people, maybe newer Lions fans, and aren't used to the pain that comes with Lions losses. We've become better at coping with it. Fast forward a couple months from now, we're probably not even looking at this loss, depending on how the rest of the season goes. If we're in the playoff hunt and one thing or another happens, maybe we come back on this and kind of blame this loss as one that we should have had. It's a learning experience. And, kind of what the motto of the team is, right? It takes more.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. And, let's play no bones about it. This Buccaneers team's a good team, and they played and won the game. And we did not take advantage of enough of their mistakes, and that's why we lost this game. The red zone was, that's all we had to do was perform in there, and we should have won that game. We win this game 9 times out of 10 in the future with the same setup. So I'm not worried about the future with this team. Yes, it sucks we lost. as I'm walking out of the stadium, someone yells out in the crowd because, last week it was Jared Goff and let's go Lions. And this week it was kind of like, we're walking out, but a guy yells out, and I won't use the language he used, but I will paraphrase it for you. He said 16-1 sounds pretty good to me. So, whether we'd have to win the rest of the games, I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a good thought. It's one loss, right? And so let's just take care of business the next 2 weeks, go into the bye at 3-1, and then we can, we'll grow from there. So I thought the defense played better this week. The offense just still hasn't hit its stride, which I'm okay with. We're gonna get there.
We're looking forward to the Cardinals.
Yep. Let's move on to that. So we'll be back with you Thursday morning. Same format with a Pride preview. And, hopefully this guest lives up to the first two guests that we've had because they've been very good. And we've heard a lot of good feedback about from you, our listeners, about liking this, the way that we're running this. Jacob and I are getting our feet, firmly on the ground and figuring out how we want to run these. And this is, we're just getting lucky with some really good guests. And we got people lined up for Seattle already. So it's working out pretty well. So we're hoping to continue that series. And then hopefully next week when we do another biting recap, we're going over a win because that'll be much more fun for you and I, Jacob.
For sure.
All right. So we're going to head out of here and hope you guys all had a good day and go Lions.